All right, we have got all of our supplies here. We've already talked about what we needed to do in preparation. I have my spine ready to go and everything's ready to go. The main thing you need to know is how to make the holes. So I have three different, if you can see the three different sizes of hole makers. This is an awl or an ice pick. You can get either one. That's my thickest. This is the one that I will use if I am got fabric involved because I need to make bigger holes. This is another awl. It's a little bit smaller, but if I just have papers, I just use my needle and it makes a great hole, and then I can string it at the same time. The two different types of needles we've talked about. This is my darn needle, and the darn needle has the sharp end on it for getting through things. This is my tapestry needle, and it is dull on the end. And when I am doing my weaving of my binding, I use this so it does not catch in the fibers of my wax thread that I am weaving it with. So, goes aside. The first thing we do is after you've gone through all of your pages and you've determined you have them in the sequence that you like, you make sure that everything is lined up. My person that I usually put into every single page, chapter, I put it in the middle because I want it to be caught by the top, the middle, the second, third, and fourth hole, just to hold it nice and straight. So I make sure that everything is nice and straight in there, and then I open it up, line it up, and I use these clips. And when I'm putting the clips on, when I am doing the top, I always put them down so that I always know, because I'm twisting and turning this at all times. And I want to make sure that I know where my top is. The bottom, I'm not as concerned about, so I leave those open, and that signifies those are my bottom. Make sure that it's right on the fold. And then I take my nifty little template. And to make a template, I normally do 5 holes. So I simply take a piece of paper, fold it in half, and then each of the halves I fold into thirds on either side. And each of those lines create where each of my holes are going to be. Now, the most important part is that you have either a arrow to say this is the up, or number them, because they're in the same order as this, and I want to make sure they do line up. I had talked about these being on the same plane when we made those. Not so important to have the holes accurate, but the planes are important. So once I have that lined up, I'm going to take my template, and starting at the top, I am going to put just a little dot at each spot, right on the fold line, or close enough to the fold line. And these, once they're strung up and bound, they are not going to be seen. Then, because this has fabric in it and it's a little bit harder to get through, I carefully put my awl through there, and I twist it so that I've got a nice hole to find. As you can see, when I get to this point, I see that I have a little bit of a hard time finding my holes sometimes. And just make sure you do not catch your hand on the back side of this. Guess how I know. I stuck it right through my hand, my fingers. Now I'm going to need to bind that to my spine. So these are the two covers that I have to choose from. This cover I made without the pellin in it, and you can see that it's quite flimsy. There's nothing wrong with that. This one I've made with a pellin in it, and I like the pellin a little bit better. So I'm going to use this as my cover, and you can tell which color wax thread I like the best, and I'm going to determine which one I want to put in here. So I've got green, brown, yellow, black, and as always, I really like my brick colored thread. So I'm going to measure how much I need to cut off, and it's going to be 2.5, and then I'm going to cut it. And voila, I am ready. I have my needle down here, and I have discovered that it is a lot easier to bind a book to a spine if I start at the back. And this one is the front page. So I'm gonna go ahead and put my holes in my back page because it's so much easier to do it that way. All right, so now we have our book bound to the spine and ready to go. And I need to choose which one of these I'm going to use as my cover. And the way I would do that is cross over like so. And then I would put my button, and I've got 2 buttons to choose from. That one or that one. Or do I want to do more of a hardbound copy one? And the same thing. This would, oops, like so. Like so. Like so. And I would choose my button. Now, one of the things that I've done with my book is I love secret pockets. So at the back of my book I have sewn on a secret pocket, and I like to put messages on little pieces of paper and stick them into my pockets. And then on the inside I also have a secret pocket. It is over here, and it is made out of one of my tea bags that I dyed. And I like to put, again, little pieces of paper with notes on them inside of my pockets. A lot of the times I'll sew a little tab on it so that it's easier to pull out, and you also realize that there's something going on inside of there. Now, normally I sew right there on the edge a little hoop to put around my pocket, around my button. And this is literally just a very easy process. I particularly like the Lena's. It's an inexpensive glue. It holds really, really, really well, and it dries clear. And so this is the glue I normally use. Very inexpensive. You can get it in any hobby store. You can get it at Walmart. And I will be able to come back in and sew my little hoop on later. So I just really cover that well over my strings. Before I do this, I am going to make sure that I have my people in. That is my great-grandmother, Ruby. I'm going to make sure that she's in there correctly. And I want to make sure that way that I lay it down correctly. So I'm going to center it. A little bit off. bind this particular type of book. And before I put my button and hoop on there, I'm going to let it dry. So again, my trusty little rubber bands.